This is Dance Studio 411, where we answer your real-life questions about your toughest studio life predicaments. Parent problems, teacher turnover, student challenges, policy dilemmas, and so much more. Let's talk about what's keeping you awake at night and what you can do about it. Here are your hosts, Suzanne Blake Garrity and Jill Tyrone.
Welcome to this episode of the Dance Studio 411 podcast. I'm Jill Tyrone, and today's episode is all about delegation. What to delegate, what not to delegate, and how to prepare, get organized, and delegate effectively. Whether you have an office manager or are thinking about hiring one, or maybe you're still in the early stages of getting started and just want to be more organized and productive, this episode is one you'll want to listen to because we're sharing our top tasks and projects you can pass off to your office manager so you have more time to spend running and growing your business. My special guest is Patti Rielley. Patti is our newest member of the Dance Studio Owner team. She and I work closely together, and she has become an invaluable asset to the team. I don't know what I would do without her, which is exactly why I wanted to share her expertise with our listeners today. She is the office manager at Elite Dance Academy in Illinois. And prior to that, she was the owner, business manager, and artistic director of Bluestone Academy of Dance and Music for 17 years. Born and raised in Chicago, Patti started dancing as soon as she could walk. Her love for music and dance led her to a career in musical theater. After graduating from the University of Illinois with a Bachelor of Arts, she performed professionally for many years. Patti teaches and choreographs throughout Chicagoland, specializing in musical theater. Because one can never be too busy, Patti also fosters dogs for Midwest Labrador Retriever Rescue and enjoys playing the Irish drum and singing with her husband, Jim, in their folk and Irish band, Small Batch. As you can tell, and as you'll hear today, Patti's expertise and experience is extensive, and she's a huge asset to our team here at Dance Studio Owner. Patti, welcome. I am so excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much, Jill. This is going to be a lot of fun today.
It is. I'm excited to share this time with you, and I cannot stress to our listeners enough how qualified you are to speak on this topic today. From studio owner to artistic director to your role now as the office manager at Elite, and of course, helping me manage our community in Dance Studio Owner and having all of our members be a great part of our family here. I'm excited to share all your expertise. So I gave a good overview of your background when I read your bio, but what I wanted to start with today is how about you share a little bit more about your journey as a studio owner and now having transitioned into your role as office manager?
Sure. I took over my dance studio where I started when I was 10 years old. It was my teacher. I kind of worked with her. I was an assistant for the classes, and then I helped with a lot of desk work and behind the scenes, and eventually taught for her and then took over the studio. I'm not sure I realized what a big undertaking that would be, but it was great. And I really enjoyed making it my own. One of the things, I did not have an office manager when I ran my own studio, and I kind of did it all, which in retrospect may not have been the smartest decision. So now that I am the office manager for Elite, I think one of the things that works so well is that we really have an amazing team. Everyone has their own tasks, and we help each other out, but nobody has to do all of it themselves.
Great. Yes, I know when we were speaking, getting ready for this podcast, you mentioned about, looking back and how you know now what you wished you had known then. So this is why I wanted to share everything and really pick your brain today so that we can give some really good advice and not only, how to delegate, but what to delegate. So before we dive right into these 5 tasks and projects that you can delegate, let's give a couple of success tips. So again, whether or not you have an office manager, studio owners they need to be organized, right? That's really part of what we're talking about today is getting to the root of the key to success, and that's organizing everything that you're doing. And that will save you time and energy, again, whether you have your office manager or not. And it just becomes so much easier to hand things off. So Patti, think about those things that you do at Elite, daily, things that are really repetitive that you do over and over and over again. You're probably answering the same types of questions, multiple times throughout the course of the day and the week. So can these tasks be automated? Maybe you can set up an automated task or an automated response in your messenger that answers this or points them to the right place. Maybe setting up frequently asked questions on your website, right? So let's talk about a little bit of organization and maybe even automate it a little bit before we get started.
Right. So there is one of the things I think having a designated office manager, they're the ones that are going to get the emails. They're the ones that are going to be replying. So when you notice a pattern of the same questions come up over and over, maybe there needs to be a better way of getting that information out in the first place. So you don't even have to answer those questions, or an FAQ section on that, or you just have templated emails that say, oh, when someone says this, this goes out. And having that one person who deals with that question over and over, they know the best answer. They know where to find the information. When you have a teacher doing it, or an office manager, or sometimes the studio owner, maybe people are getting different information. So this is the best way to make sure everyone is getting the same information and it's less work for everybody.
Awesome. I love the idea of templates. I love the idea of making sure that things are right at your fingertips when you need them. Some tools for collaboration before we get into those 5 things that we recommend you delegating. I know what's really great, and a lot of studio owners use Google Drive. So Google Drive allows you to have folders, and you can tuck everything in. Super easy to find images when you need them. Those templates that you referred to for emails, any type of response. I think that's a really, really handy tool. Again, Google is my friend. I love it tremendously. We've also used Trello quite a bit, especially in our trainings with our studio owners. Trello is a wonderful tool to help you get organized and collaborate. So as a studio owner, you can be listing out some of your opening or your closing procedures, some of those templated emails, put them in Trello boards, and then you share them and you can collaborate with your office manager. And this holds true with any project management like Asana or anything that you would be using to collaborate. So Patti, what are your favorites?
Google is definitely my favorite. I'm a newer Mac user. I was a PC user. I do use PC. I love the fact, I think Google maybe, I don't know if they started it, but to be able to work on the same document. So Jill and I are in completely different states, and yet we can be absolutely same time on the same thing. Sometimes people where I work at the studio, I'm not in every day, but I work from home mostly, and that makes zero difference at all. The other nice thing is, especially knowing the difference between a studio owner and studio office manager, maybe there's some things you don't want someone to have access to. You can limit those capabilities. So only some people can see this, but they can't edit it. Some people can comment on it. So you want to make sure your big document doesn't get changed, but you want the input on it. You can change those settings as well. That's been a big key. We've learned from that. It got changed that we didn't want to get changed, but that really, really helps. And then Trello is really great for, hey, these are things we want to do throughout the year. So in September, we need to make sure these tasks get done. In April, these tasks have to get done. So you can put those ideas, maybe the studio owner has the big ideas and your office manager does more of the task work. Put the big ideas out there. Let your office manager or your team come up with the details behind it.
Excellent advice. And I agree with that. I love the fact that when you look at your studio cycle and how things happen, they often recur. So things that you do, like you mentioned, in September, you're going to do them every September. So once you have that template and you have that Trello board all down, you can just copy it to a new one and start fresh for that next year. And everything's there for you. You don't have to recreate the wheel each time.
Right. And if your office manager may not be with you forever, depending on who you have, this may be a transitional thing. If you have that in place, it's really easy to hand off to the next person.
Excellent. Okay, great. So let's move right into these 5 tasks, projects, things that you can delegate to your office manager. Let's start with number 1. And I think you probably laid this out in a nice process because this is probably the area where we need to focus on the most, but it's sometimes the hardest for the studio owner to let go. And that's all about your accounts receivable, your invoicing, your bookkeeping, all of the financial type things that are happening, registrations and database stuff. So Patti, why is this a good thing to outsource and how can we go about doing that?
I think this is extremely important. When I ran my own studio, I did very well with the administrative side and the artistic side. But as you know, left brain, right brain, sometimes you get a little bit too much. So for me, it was very tricky to shift gears, to work really hard administratively all day and then be super creative at night, creating choreography and looking at costumes and things like that. So I think being able to delegate this out really frees up one side of your brain to be more creative, to have more of the fun side of why we're dance teachers in the first place. There is too, as I mentioned with the Google Docs, maybe there's some things that you do not want to delegate. You want to have the control over. So I know for me at Elite, I don't do any of the accounts payable. I don't look at rent. I don't look at teacher pay. So you can be very, very careful about what you are sharing. But things like accounts receivable, the database, we use Jackrabbit, which is a really nice tool. There's a lot of things you can do, and there are different ways to set up your accounts. So your office manager can have these things that they can see, but these things that they can't. So I think a lot of our dance studio owners are control, I don't want to say freaks, that's the wrong word, but I know I was. So I'll say that. I was a control freak. All the tools and everything. But there are ways that you can give a little bit of that freedom out and still maintain your control, still maintain, I know everything that's going on. I just don't have to do all of it all the time. But this is the biggest part of your studio. What students do you have? What did you have last year? What are you hoping? What are your goals to have? What classes have wait lists? What classes do we need to open up? Am I getting paid? Can I make my rent the next time? Let somebody else do all the numbers for you. Even if you really do love that, you just might need to spend your time doing more of the other things. So I think that's extremely important. Get those reports and have somebody run the report so you can look at them. You don't have to run the reports. You just want to know what the data is.
Definitely. Really good point. So whether you're using Jackrabbit, Studio Director, any other studio software, I'm hoping you're using those because they are so essential to pulling those reports. Those are the things that you can't quite get out of using Excel sheets anymore for registration. So we encourage you to definitely have some sort of a studio platform to run your business because it's so helpful. And talking about tuition and collections, if for some reason a credit card declines or somebody's delinquent on their invoicing and their tuition, I know that the studio owners are not very effective in collecting on that. So I want to stress too, Patti, and I'm sure you know this, the office managers or somebody else other than the studio owner is much more effective in getting those tuition payments in.
And not only effective, I think there really should be a separation. I think as the studio owner, you want to be generous and magnanimous, and I will do everything for you. Let your office manager be the bulldog. Let them make the calls and say, I'm sorry, we just can't do this. And then the studio owner can say, you know what, we'll let you slide this time. You work together. I know what the studio owner wants, but we want to have a really good face for the dancers, for the families to think everything is super nice. It's just that mean office manager. But then you get the payments in.
I love that. I love that. Absolutely showing that you have your individual roles and letting the studio owner shine. I think that's really important.
Really important.
Great. Let's move on to number 2, which is one of the areas that I absolutely love, and that's studio communications.
Yes. So I do think there are times that you want your studio owner to be out there. You know, maybe there's a personal email beginning of the year or end of the year. We just sent out our big recap for our summer concerts. We're so happy. Everyone did a great job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The rest of the stuff throughout the year, maybe it has their name on it, but you don't need to be sending every single one of them out. I think you want to make sure the communication from the studio owner goes to the studio office manager, what needs to be sent, but let somebody else do that grunt work for you. That takes up so much time, especially when something gets bounced or comes back, or if you're dealing with MailChimp or Constant Contact, or a lot of things go from your studio database software. Jackrabbit will do it. The other ones will do it. Having somebody else manage that for you, very, very important. Phone calls too. Owners are too busy to take all those calls. So there might be sometimes you will have to reply. You'll have to send back, but let somebody kind of field those for you to start. Is that a question? I really could tell you what time that class is. You don't need the studio owner to tell you the mandatory meeting is mandatory.
Definitely. And I also added in website to this too, making sure even if you have your office manager or somebody else besides you taking a look at your website to see what is current, what's not, what can we add? How, does this path on your website look like it makes sense to somebody who's not familiar with your studio at all? So Patti, an office manager is a great person to delegate some of this type of website communication and forward-facing information as well.
And your office manager doesn't have to be a pro at websites. They need to make sure they can proofread. They need to make sure everything is in the right place, whether you're building it, they're building it, who's maintaining it. There are so many free or not very expensive website hosting sites, but to make sure that the information you want is there and up to date. So you change the schedule. The schedule needs to be current on your website. Is there a trial form? Anything that needs to be correct and updated needs to be on your website ASAP.
Great. So studio communications, number 2, moving into number 3 of the things that we can delegate to our office manager, costume and dancewear management. This is huge. Like when we think about the costume ordering process and all of that, the things that go into just getting to the actual ordering stage, there are a lot of different things to manage, a lot of different, cogs and processes in this big wheel of costume and dancewear management.
Yeah. So this is actually one of the first things I started to do before I took over my studio. I said, I see what an amazing, huge, monstrous task this is. I know some people, have their houses filled with sequins and glitter, and that's the end. That's not even all this stuff beforehand. So I think I can see people going, oh my gosh, we're done with costumes this year. I can't even think about it for next time. But there are so many things. Pick out the costumes, have the fun, do the creative side of it, let somebody else do the grunt work. So things like measuring, make sure whoever's doing the measuring knows how to do it, but let somebody else do it. Let them input all the measurements into whatever system you're using. It can be Excel, it can be Google Sheets, it can be your studio software. But that, and then even picking out costume sizes. That's a tricky one. I know that are they a medium? Are they a large? Where is that? So I know things like Revolution has the sizing kits, and that's pretty much the best way to go. But if you don't, let somebody else get at least an idea of, I think these are the right costume sizes, and then you can double check it. You don't have to go through the hours ahead of time for that. So the measuring, the ordering, so much of that is easy to do online or call up if you have to. That works out really, really well. And if there's problems, studio owner can be in charge of that, but checking things off of a list does not require the studio owner. Let somebody else take care of that for you. So even the distributing, some people do it per class. Some people do it. We had in COVID last year, we actually did it alphabetical order. We had a drive-through costume pickup, and man, it was crazy. It worked really, really well, but we had garbage bags of people's costumes, and we had, A through F comes at this time and G through L comes at this time. But we had a team that put all that together. It can't be one person with that. So all of that. The other thing too, so dancewear, I was mostly talking about costumes, but dancewear is one of the great ways that your studios can make money with very, very little work. We use Nimbly with Revolution, and that has been an absolute game changer for us. It takes a little bit of time setting up the store. I know that there are customer service reps that can help you with that. That's something I did for my studio. And again, being the control freak, I kind of wanted to be in charge of all of it, put everything together. But once it's up, people order online, it gets sent to their homes. We don't do anything with it. So put somebody in charge of that. It's nice to have a dress code. I think that's another conversation altogether about what you do with your studio. But if you do any kind of that, let your dance studio manager take care of that for you. And then it's just done. And your dancers are wearing what they should wear.
Wow. So in looking at the whole costume process from start to finish, the costumes, everything you start thinking about starts at the beginning of the season because, those costumes have to be ordered sooner rather than later. And then dancewear, that starts really in the summer if you're going to have a dress code and get that implemented for your fall season. So that in itself, for our third point that we covered, if you could outsource even some of that, wow, that would free you up for so much other things that you could be doing to run your business. Okay, good. That was a big one, number 3. And number 4 is another one. I know this is the bane of some of the studio owners' existence is social media. Some people really love doing this. Some people really don't like doing it, but it's a necessary evil regardless, and that we have to manage our social media. So, Patti, how can the office manager help with this? Kind of ties into the communications, but it's really, we left it separate. How can the office manager help the studio owner with their social media?
So one of the things I am still very much learning is social media really is the way of the world now, right? So it is marketing, it is communication, it is how we relate to each other now. It's kind of the name of the game. So it has to be first and foremost an importance in your studio business. And therefore you have to take charge of it in some way. I'm a little bit older, so it's not automatic to me. I have to work at it a little bit. And I'm not the primary person who works on social media at our studio, but we do have a team that does that. So I think that this definitely needs to be delegated out just because it's almost a 24/7 job. I think to be able to have, hey, this is coming up. Many people don't look at emails anymore. So if you need to put something in an email, you put out a social media blast that says, please go look at your emails. And hey, our concert's coming up, or these forms are due, or pictures are today, or the studio's closed for inclement weather. So I think it's extremely important that you need that out there. I also think that there are certain things like with Trello, going back to our timing of things and knowing when stuff's going to happen. You can put so much out there ahead of time. You can even post these or schedule them to be posted at a later time. So meet with somebody who's going to do your social media. Say, these are the things that need to go out. These are when they should go out. Maybe you've got someone that creates amazing graphics. They can do that for you. That could be the same person or somebody different. Maybe you spend weeks before the season starts and get so many of your things set. Maybe you want to do birthdays, things like that. I think you really have to have somebody in charge of this. You have to give them direction. That's one thing I do really, I'm a great support person, and that's what your manager needs to be. They need to be your support. Give them some direction, tell them what you want out there, and then let them do it. Also, having some control, make sure you know who's in charge of it, somebody you really want to do that. Some people have students do this, which could be great because this is their native language. That's what they do. Just make sure you see a couple of things ahead of time. You know how they're going to post it, how it's going to look. But I think it's extremely important in this day and age that social media is first and foremost communication.
Definitely. And again, we can talk about organizing things in Trello or in your studio management platform that you're using, however you want to do it. I think it's great. And you can use something like Dropbox or Google Drive to organize all those photos ahead of time. So as you have a big batch of photos or you're taking things during your week at the studio, put them into an organized folder so that you can go back and find them easily. Excellent advice. Okay. And let's close out with number 5, research. I love this one because there's so much that your office manager can be doing in all of their downtime, right? Because, they have so much downtime, but if there are some lulls actually where they can do some research. So Patti, what do you recommend for outsourcing there to your office manager?
Sure. So things like making the calls. Where are you going to have your concert? Do you have a performance company? Are they going to do some local events? Not every studio does this, but I think it's a great way to give your dancers a chance to perform. It gives you recognition within your community, which can bring in new students. So what are places that you can perform at? Are there preschools? Are there senior setters? Are there parades? Things like that. And that doesn't take that much work to find that out, but you don't need to do it. Let somebody do the research and bring those ideas to you. And then you can go, oh, no, yes. Those are the ones I want to do. You get to pick and choose. Things like retail. So if you want to do the whole Nimbly store, you want to put that on there, or there's different things you want to, we have these sneakers we want for hip hop or something that way. Or even, I know sometimes some costumes you go to Walmart or Target for, you can have somebody do that research. Competitions. There are so many out there, your conventions, your competitions. Just knowing what the prices are. What do we want upcharge? Let somebody put all of that in a big spreadsheet or a Google Doc or something for you. You can then look it over, but you're not trying to pull from all the different ways. Even things like, what are your competitors offering class-wise? What are their pricing for tuition? Where are they having their concerts and recitals? So you don't always have to be in competition with them. You just want to know that you're offering a good product that people are looking for, and you're in the right realm of pricing or offerings, or you're better.
Yes, solid advice. I love all 5 of those. So again, let's start and kind of regroup and do a little closing, and we'll go over all of these things just one quick more time. First and foremost, I think just getting yourself organized, right? You can't outsource a mess. You can't delegate to somebody if you yourself aren't crystal clear on what's happening. That doesn't mean you need to know everything and have everything figured out, because that's your job. That's the job of your office manager. But if you can effectively organize things to a point where then you can easily outsource it. And then, like you mentioned too, Patti, if for some reason you change office managers or they move out of state and you have to bring somebody else in, it's already there for somebody new to pick up on. So setting up those systems, getting things organized, super easy to do. It takes a little bit of time on the front end, but the payoff in the long run is really, really worth it. So then our 5 things that you can easily outsource to your office manager are things like bookkeeping, databases, invoicing, those accounts receivables, doing the nuts and bolts of the business side of things without, having them do too much. Again, you mentioned being able to turn things on or off, show them what they need to see versus what you want to hold tight to your vest as the studio owner. And then number 2, studio communications. Super awesome, super important, very, very forward facing. Patti, you shine when it comes to our dance studio owner member correspondence. You know the language, you know how to speak and walk the walk. So this is really important. If you can set up some templates for your office manager and get them going, with what you like and what sounds good and feels good to you, then you're golden. Number 3 was costume and dancewear management. This is a huge portion of what we do every year. Make sure that you're working with your office manager on that. Number 4 is social media. That's pretty self-explanatory. Figure out how you can develop a system, set up a calendar, set up a good way of sharing photos. And then number 5, research. Research your competitors, research your venues and the competitions and the classes and all of those good things that you can really shine with your studio. So Patti, I'm going to let you close on out here with some final words. And I cannot thank you enough for your time and talent today and your expertise.
Thank you. Thanks, Jill. There were just a couple random thoughts I wanted to make sure all of our members knew. Your office manager doesn't have to be the same person that's sitting at your front desk in your lobby. Not everyone has that, but people typically do. If there's questions, if there's a call that comes in, making sure somebody's just in your building with that. But I do most of my office manager work from home on the computer during different times of the day. So maybe somebody has a student there or a mom, but they don't have, again, all the keys to your database and that kind of stuff. So that can be somebody different there as opposed to who's doing the majority of work for you. You can forward your phone. So during the day, if you've got your office managers working at their house on the computer, forward the studio phone. People are still calling. People do want that personal touch. And if they have a question, they want to know right now. So that person, you don't have to somebody at your studio if you don't have classes during the day. Let your office manager take those calls. There's probably not tons, but they can answer that right away. Forward the phone back when it's time to open the studio. And then whoever's there can take that. The other thing, the biggest thing, as a studio owner, do what you love to do. If you love to make the canvas, make the canvas. If you love posting things on social media, post on social media. If you really love Excel spreadsheets, which I do those. But make sure that if there's something that is not your favorite, find somebody, because there is somebody who does love to do it. Delegate those tasks out. Let yourself do what makes you happy. Be with the kids, be with your staff. Wear the pretty costumes. That kind of thing is the fun stuff. Give somebody else things that maybe you struggle with or that you just don't have the time for.
Excellent. That's such great advice. I was even thinking too, something that the studio owners actually really do like doing is maybe even measuring the children, and not necessarily because they feel like they will have a handle on doing it better than somebody else or making sure that it's accurate, but they get that face-to-face time with each student. So if you really want to be involved and you want to have time with your students, even though we're suggesting outsourcing some of these things to a member of your staff, do it yourself. If it gives you joy, do it. I love that, Patti. I'm so glad you added that one in today. So again, thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise and your time and talent and all of your gifts to our listeners today. I'm really appreciative of your time.
Thanks so much, Jill. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dance Studio 411. Visit us online at dancestudio411.com for more great resources and to submit a question for a future episode. Our number one goal is to help you build a successful dance studio business and keep your passion for dance alive.